Welcome to the Reticle Up podcast, where I, 3-Gun Kenzie, will be interviewing competitive shooters, hunters, fishermen, archers, entrepreneurs, and outdoorsmen. Come learn with me as I interview people from all walks of life, in different disciplines, all across the world, from novices to professionals of all ages. No matter what, everyone has something they can teach you, so come join me on the journey. Hey everyone, welcome back. This week I'm with Tim Carroll. He is the founder of LFX Firearms Training. He's a firearms instructor teaching Tennessee handgun carry classes, which is how we met, carbine classes, situational awareness classes, and there's a lot of credentials we're going to talk about today. Pretty impressive, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I did research, so I knew like 10% of all of the coolness. So going into that too, did you always know that this is what you were going to end up doing?
No, not at all.
Really?
No, so my dad was he's a retired major from the Army. And I grew up as an Army brat.
Okay.
So, from the time I was born in Texas. My sister was born in Alaska. My brother was born in Virginia. We moved all over the place.
Yep.
And I grew up on base. That's where we lived. We stayed on base the whole time, lived on base.
Wow.
And my dad was never a gun guy. So we had like a old 22 squirrel gun and sat in the closet and we never shot it. I don't think I ever shot that gun.
Oh, wow.
And just kind of came about where, I was working swing shift and I thought, my wife probably needs something at home,
Yeah.
to take care of herself if she ever needed to. So I bought my first handgun, which was I think it was a Glock 22 in 45 caliber.
Nice, which is confusing for everyone.
Sure, yeah, yeah, and I shot it. I was always a good shot. My dad taught me how to shoot, but we shot like pellet guns and things like that. So it wasn't anything big or a variety of things. And like I said, I was always a good shot. And then I went and got my concealed carry permit.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, yeah, I'm good, right?
Yep.
Got my gun, I got my permit, I can carry now.
Where were you in this time, by the way? What state?
So I was probably mid-20s.
Okay.
I think that's how old I was when I bought my first gun.
Okay.
Somewhere around there, 26, 25, 26. And
what state were you living in, though?
I was in Tennessee. So we've lived in Tennessee since early 90s, I think. 91 is when we moved here, finally settled down. That's when Dad retired. So all the extended families from here. So that's where we ended up.
Okay.
And
you went with a 45 caliber to start off things, because that sounds like a fun idea.
Well,
for your wife.
I didn't know anything, about guns. My dad wasn't a gun guy, and neither was I, right? So I just was like, okay, everybody says, get big caliber, so 45, right? Get the 45 ACP, right? So that's what I did.
Oh my God.
And I listened to, Tom Gresham is.
I don't. I should.
So he runs a radio show called Gun Talk, and he puts it out as a podcast as well. So this was about the time when podcasts were coming out. So I was like, okay, well, I've got a gun. Maybe I can listen to some gun podcasts. Okay. So I was listening to him, and he had this guy on his radio show called Tiger McKee. Tiger McKee is one of the nation's premier firearms instructors. I was listening to him. I was like, oh, that guy sounds, nice and calm, makes a lot of sense. What he's saying is, I'm interested. So I looked him up, and, he's only a few hours from here. I think maybe 2.5, 3 hour drive. And I thought, I should go take a class, because 8-hour firearms class. I was like, man, that seems kind of intense, but let me just go check it out, see what it's like. So I went and took a full day handgun class. Actually, I think it was a 2-day class. Yeah.
After you had your permit too. So you did like
backwards.
Okay.
Yeah. So full 2-day class. And when I got done with that class, I was like, oh man, I don't know anything. I know nothing about defensive firearms. Mm-hmm. So I started snowballing, and I started taking more and more classes, several different instructors. Always kept going back to Tiger because, he's my first instructor, and he's, I'm not a fan of paying to get yelled at.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of firearms instructors, defensive firearms instructors who either come from a military background or a police background who like to yell at their students and get super intense and do this whole drill instructor thing. It's like, man, if I'm going to pay several $100s for a class, I don't want to be yelled at.
Well, and I think that you found someone that matches your personality. Like knowing you, you're very calm. I've never seen you. I wouldn't know the difference between angry and, but like you got lucky where you found your person like right off the bat. And I tell a lot of people like go take a variety of classes, go figure out who you can learn from too, or who, like you said, fits what you want.
Right. Yeah. And he was that. He's super calm. If you're out on the range and something goes wrong, he's not like yelling, yeah, get it fixed, get back in the fight and all this stuff. He's just like, all right, fix it. Let's figure out what the problem is, fix it. So like I said, I realized I didn't know anything and started taking more and more classes. It kind of snowballed, and it was one of those things, it's like you turn out to be the gun person, right? In your clique or your society or your group of friends and family. It's like, oh yeah, he's the gun person.
Yep.
So it was friends and family would say, hey, can you show so-and-so how to shoot? Can you show my friend, my sister, my aunt? So I was like, yeah,
still
sure.
Do that, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. And I was fortunate enough that I've got some land available that I can go out and shoot at on my own. I don't have to go to a public range. Those absolutely terrify me.
You've never struggled as an instructor. That's all I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Like not having a place to go. It's cool.
Yeah. Public ranges just terrify me, but
even though, like having your own property is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't take that for granted. I realize how fortunate I am to have my own land to be able to shoot on.
Yep.
And I was like, well, maybe I should get a certification. So I got a couple of certifications here.
We'll go through those soon. Yep.
Yeah. And then it started, just snowballing more and more. And then I was contacted by a local range here that said, hey, why don't you come out and teach classes here? So I emailed Tiger because he's always, at the end of his classes, he always says, hey, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, just shoot me an email.
And he means it.
I sent him an email and he said, hey, if you're really serious about firearms instruction, why don't you come down here and apprentice with me? I was just like, wow.
Yeah. Okay. Like, oh my God.
He's only offered that to, I want to say 2 other people in his entire career.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes, I will absolutely do that. So I've been apprenticing with him for the last 4 years now, I guess.
And that's Shootrite Firearms Academy, right?
Yeah, that's at Shootrite Firearms Academy down in Langston, Alabama.
Yeah.
And I've just, and as you know, you learn way more when you're instructing people than you do by taking instruction. So it's just gone from there and, take on more and more students and then eventually get rolling from there. And to answer your original question, I know that was long-winded, but
I love it.
I never pictured it. It was just one of those things. It's like, if I get interested in something, I usually don't kind of do it half-heartedly. I'm kind of like all the way. And I committed myself to doing that. And that's something I really enjoy. And that's, as part of my day job.
Yeah.
I instruct people and I do training and things like that anyway. So I'd like to consider myself good at it. And it was just kind of a natural extension of, I love the firearms world and I love teaching. So might as well put them together. So that's something I'm really passionate about right now. But
could change.
I never, when I first started shooting, I never saw myself as an instructor.
No, or with 7,000 certificates, and we'll get into that. But before we continue, I have to know the answer to this. It's bothering me. Did your wife shoot that 45 caliber gun?
Yeah, she shot it.
How'd she feel?
Yeah, I mean, it was fine. She's a good shot. She's she doesn't shoot as much as I would like her to.
Sure.
But she's not nearly as passionate about it as I am.
Right.
But she does shoot and she shoots well.
But would you hand in any other female 45 caliber for the first time?
No, not the first time. Typically not the first time.
That's like a big no-no in our world now that you learned, but I just had to ask. Sure. That's funny. Yeah. So what did you originally want to do actually before that? Did you have a plan for your life?
So in high school, I always, because, Dad was in the military and it was such a huge part of our life. I always thought I'm going to go into the military. Yeah. It was like anybody that knew me thought, yeah, Tim's going to go into the Army or something like that. It was, and still today, I get questions all the time from folks. If I go in somewhere and they offer military discounts, they'll immediately ask me, "Oh, you want the military discount?" If I go to an airport, people will say, "Thank you for your service."
What?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Stereotyping. That's stereotyping.
I got pulled aside, and I was in Italy one time traveling, and I got pulled aside by their security team because they were like, "Are you in the military?" I was like, "Nope." They're like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I think I'd know."
Were you wearing 511 pants?
No, I was just wearing jeans, t-shirt, had my jacket on, and I've got an olive drab backpack that I use as my carry-on.
Okay.
Maybe that was it, I guess, but it's just like a 511 backpack. There's nothing special about it. It's just olive drab. And yeah, I got pulled aside there, but it's all the time. And one guy that he was a former Marine, and he always said, "Well, it's the way you carry yourself and walk around. You're constantly scanning and looking at stuff like that. So people just naturally assume that you're in the military." But I have to correct people all the time and say no.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, originally it was going to be, I was going to go into the military, and then life happens, and different things, and you just start traveling a different path, and get a family and stuff like that. So yeah, it never worked out that way. That's one of those things that's like, I kind of wish I had done that, but I'm happy with where I'm at.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And the thing too, I'll love military, but not all military are like that either. Situational awareness, carry themselves. So it's like interesting. I think that's our default. Like so many people, same with me. I'm like, I wouldn't have done well being owned for a few years.
Yeah.
So traveling for the apprenticeship, like how does that work? With working with Tiger, what are you doing for the apprenticeship?
So really all he'll do is if he has a larger class, usually like 3 or more folks, he'll give me a call or shoot me an email and say, "Hey, I've got this class coming up. We've got several people in it. Can you come give me a hand?"
Cool.
And I'll just say sure, because it's a day trip for me. I wake up early and drive down there and drive home late, and it's pretty easy to do. There's nothing hard about it. And I'm very flexible in my day job. So I always have the ability to, I work from home about half the week, and I always have the chance to be able to just drive down there. But yeah, I'd make time to go down there and do classes with him.
Oh, heck yeah. If you were anyone else in that position would do the same thing. I think it's interesting too, for a lot of shooters that I talk to, like distance driving 4 or 5 hours. That's like, okay, that's fine. Like no big deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Other people are like, that's so far, like over an hour is too much. I'm like,
yeah.
Perspective changes with opportunity. So I'm sure you've learned 8,000 things. What are some of like the biggest takeaways you've learned from Tiger?
Consistency. His biggest thing is always consistency. So I could go to one of his classes, and I could probably tell you what he's going to say before he says it, almost word for word, because he is so consistent. Like, I mean, this guy literally eats the exact same thing for lunch every day.
Ew.
It is consistent. Like when we go to the cafe for lunch, I'll just tell them, "Hey, Tiger's coming," and they will make the exact same dish for lunch, because he is consistent in everything he does. And it's, consistency, allows you to have repeatability, and repeatability makes you better. He's super old school. I'm not nearly as old school as he is, but he is very, very old school. If something hasn't been tried and tested for the last 40 years, he's not taking it up. I'm a lot more flexible when it comes to that sort of thing. Like, I've got a red dot on my carry pistol, and he's just like, "No red dots. No
never.
Red dots." Yeah, never.
They've updated the technology now. Like, batteries last forever.
Yep.
That's interesting. I have to ask, have you ever been to Thunder Ranch?
No, that's on my list.
Me too.
I want to make it out there. So Tiger actually trained with Clint Smith.
Okay.
That's the lineage he comes from. The defensive firearms world is a lot like the martial arts world. One could make the argument that defensive firearms use is a martial art.
Yeah.
So it's, when you look at lineage, like you talk about jujitsu, right? I take jujitsu, and it's like, okay, is it Gracie jujitsu? Is it Japanese jujitsu? It's just, stuff like that. So people want to know who trained the guy that's training you.
Yeah.
And in the firearms world, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, okay, well, where's that lineage coming from? You say, okay, well, here's Clint Smith. Tiger trained under Clint Smith, and now he's teaching something, and I'm training under Tiger. So it's you still look at that lineage. But yeah, Thunder Ranch is a place that I do want to make that trip to.
I know, so cool.
Yeah, West Coast though, that's
doesn't matter.
Long haul.
Thunder Ranch.
Yeah, that's true.
That's so cool. Something that you mentioned, like the instructor styles. I'm sure you've heard of Gilbert Perez locally because I want to take one of his classes. A Gilbert Perez shooter when you see the draw.
Yeah, for sure.
Like that's pretty cool though when you see that like style, I guess, of instructors. Okay, I want to talk about LFX training or firearms training. When did you start that? Like, what was the opening date?
Oh, that's a good question. So it originally came about. So me and that Marine friend that I was telling you about, we worked together.
Okay.
And we shared an office. So when you share an office with somebody, you're constantly talking during downtime. And, he was like, we started talking about instruction, and I had already had my certification, was doing some teaching and stuff on the side.
Okay. So you had that first.
Like, hey, let's start a firearms training business. I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And we were looking at land, and, we came up with the name. So LFX is an acronym for live fire exercise. And, I told him, hey, we're not doing any names that are like tactical or extreme or things like that.
Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. And it's a conversation starter. So people are like, well, what does LFX stand for?
Yep.
You get to talk about it and draw them into a conversation that way. But I want to say that came about probably 2015-ish is when the idea was born. And then when I actually started saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to make this into a legitimate business was around the 2017.
That's cool.
Time frame.
Yeah. And like, real quick too, when I think about entrepreneurship, something that just hit me is like when you're in the same space, the same way with co-working space, it's like when you surround yourself with people that are like-minded, and then you talk about ideas and stuff, you're more likely when you're in those spaces to like move mountains with them or collaborate with them or what have you. But like, the further if you don't make those connections and you don't start talking to people, like you don't know what you're missing out on. The further removed, like, if somebody's in a different state, it's so hard to link up. Someone's in a different country, it's hard, but like, I just think that's really cool.
Yeah. And so he, shortly after we came up with that, he quit the company, moved to a different job. So it was kind of like, all right, well, I guess that idea is dead.
No.
But then, as I started doing more and more instruction, I was like, I probably need to be more professional at this. So it was the whole idea of saying, okay, well, let's just go ahead. Let's just do it and start the business, create the brand and move forward from there.
So first time entrepreneur.
Yeah, that was my first, business venture, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I love it. So accidental entrepreneur-ish.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm like, okay. Okay, we're gonna go into all of them because I want to know. You teach so much. So let's talk about like the classes that you offer and like what people can expect from them. So like starting out, right? Beginner's gun safety course. What is that?
Yeah, so for the beginner, it's obviously somebody that has either never touched a gun or has very, very little experience with a handgun. And most of the folks around here are that way. Out in rural East Tennessee, you get a lot of hunters, and a lot of guys will say, oh, I've had plenty of time with my shotgun and my rifle, but I don't use the handgun very much. Also get a lot of women in that classes because men just have too much of an ego, and they think, oh, I already know how to shoot. I can shoot a rifle, then that means I can shoot a handgun. We start out with administrative actions, safety, obviously first and foremost, and then basically I'll tailor it to what the student wants, which is most of the time they'll start asking a lot of questions about, and I'll do gear recommendation, guns, that's that type of stuff, because most beginners will say, obviously, what kind of a gun should I get, right?
Yeah, always.
That's the question we get all the time.
All the time.
Like, my answer is always, I don't know.
Yeah.
I gotta figure out what's going to work for you first, and then you gotta go from there.
Yeah, I tell people, don't even ask me what I carry. Don't ask what they carry. Don't. Like, you have to go pick it up, shoot it, touch it. Like, I can't answer that. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So it's the first class is very inexpensive. It's $30 for an hour and a half. And that's kind of my hook to get people in there, right?
Yeah.
And they'll come in and ask a lot of questions. We'll do a lot of dry fire, make sure the trigger work is right, make sure they're manipulating the firearm the correct way. And then we'll put maybe 50 rounds downrange just to verify that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And then after that, they'll go from there. Hopefully they come back and take more classes. But
yeah. Describe your ideal student. Like, what is, that good student that's coachable and open and
Yeah. So yeah, you hit it. That's the right word. They got to be coachable. They have to be willing to learn. They have to be able to listen to what I'm telling them, because if they're not listening to what I'm telling them, then they're wasting their money and their time and my time. So being coachable, being very receptive, asking a lot of questions, that's what I like to see. And analytical. I found that people that come out who are very analytical do way better.
Yeah.
Folks like engineers, like if I get an engineer out, I know, this is going to be a good student because
they're like taking everything down.
Because they're writing down notes. Everything they do is repeatable. It's like the trigger press. Okay, here's how you press the trigger. And they're like, okay, they'll do it the exact same every single time.
Awesome.
So folks like that. And to be honest, and you already know this, but somebody who's never shot a gun before, I'll take that over a person who has shot for years.
No bad habits.
That's right. No bad habits to break.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's a good course to start with. And then like moving up from there. Okay. You talked about dry fire. I know you have a dry fire course. Nobody loves dry fire, right? No. But I feel like that's, I don't even know, like 70% of my improvement is dry fire.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I got one of those dry fire mags. Have you tried those yet?
Yes, I just did.
Really nice.
Oh, it's so fun.
Yeah, it's very nice. I tell my students, I say, hey, do 100 dry fire shots a day.
Yeah.
It'll take you less than 5 minutes. Do 100 dry fire shots a day and your accuracy will go through the roof.
Absolutely.
Those dry fire mag, I can draw targets on my whiteboard and sit at my office. So when I'm working in my office, just during some of my downtime, I can pick up my gun and press off, several shots. Probably
a normal day.
Oh yeah, all day. So good.
Because of like you can use your gun, right? You're using it like your Glock, so you can literally feel your trigger. And the cool thing with those too is changing out the springs.
Yep.
The weight for the trigger, which was neat.
Yep.
The only thing I didn't love is you're gonna have to buy or use your other empty magazines for reloads. Like you can't reload and shoot.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's I'll take that.
Yeah.
The amount of times that I have to do a reload is so few and far between when it comes to defensive shooting. So for me, that's not that big of a deal. It would be nice, but I couldn't justify spending that extra $100.
No, but for competitors like me, I was like, oh.
Yeah, for sure.
Difference. Actually talk about that too. So what's in your dry fire class and what kind of tools help people dry fire?
Yeah, so like the dry fire mag, I've been recommending to everybody. I want to get my hands on a Mantis X because I've heard that those actually do work with the dry fire mag. I haven't tried it out yet, but I need to. And then, if people don't have the tools, then, just dry firing on your own. If you just watch and make sure that front sight doesn't dip, make sure your trigger press is right, all that type of stuff. You don't have to spend any extra money. Snap caps, I tell people are pretty much a must. Yeah. And snap caps are super cheap. So I tell people, hey, and you can go on Amazon right now and buy 3D printed snap caps for nothing.
Yeah.
So I just tell people, hey, get some snap caps, practice, changing out mags, practice your dry fire, that type of stuff. But it's just small, and you don't even I know I've got a whiteboard, but you can aim at just about anything,
paper plate with a Sharpie.
Yeah, anything, piece of paper that's drawn. So yeah, you don't have to have a lot to do dry fire. And as far as the dry fire class goes, it's really a lot of the defensive firearms class, just without firing a shot. Really, that's all it is.
Okay. Do you want to talk about, well, before we talk about that too, like the Cool Fire training kit was another one that I tried at SHOT Show. Have you seen those where it's like CO2 tank, but it has recoil?
No, I haven't tried that.
So cool. I mean, they're like $500, but yeah, there's a tank. So you actually put the air in it. I don't know anything about that stuff, but it was cool because you feel the recoil. Mantis was another one. And then there's like Laser Pro something. Lasers help too in dry fire, like seeing what just happened when you pull the trigger, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And people like that feedback. they really like the feedback. In the defensive firearms world, though, feedback from your shots is not really important, right? Because in an actual defensive shoot, you're not going to see where your hits land.
Nope.
For competitive shooters, yeah, that's super important. Super important. But in the defensive shoot, so like in a lot of my classes, I actually use like a negative target. So what I'll do is I'll cut out the center hole in the cardboard target. So it's like it's not an IDPA, but it's like USPSA target that has the center hole right in the chest.
The silhouette, yeah.
I'll actually cut that out so that people don't focus on where those hits are landing.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because people get hung up. I see a lot of people peeking over their sights at shots and stuff like that. It's like, all right, you got to break out of that habit. It's a bad habit to have in a defensive shoot because you're not going to see where your hits land.
Nope.
I mean, you might see a shirt do something like this, maybe, but odds are you're never going to see where that hit lands.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, okay, so what's in the defensive handgun class where you're actually live firing?
Yeah. So the defensive handgun class starts out with everything that you would need if you're going to be carrying. So holster, good belt. And this is where we get into gear recommendations because people figure out, all right, what gear works, what gear doesn't work, that type of stuff. And that's when I can give recommendations. And I try to do that beforehand on the website, say, okay, don't use these types of holsters.
Please don't show up with a sticky holster.
Yes, floppy holsters, Serpa holsters, shoulder holsters, thigh holsters, pocket holsters.
Killing me.
None of that. So they figure out very quickly, okay, this gear works, this gear doesn't work. We go over steps of the draw, communication with either the person they came with or communication to the threat, which is important. So if you look at the hierarchy of defensive shooting, you got move, communicate, and then shoot if necessary.
Yeah.
So we work on the communication part. Once they have the fundamentals of the drawdown and everything else is looking pretty good, reloads, we do clearing malfunctions because that's super important.
Yeah.
And then if the student is, progressing well, we'll get into the very tip of the iceberg when it comes to movement.
Gotcha. That's awesome. How often do you see, like those videos of officers, even the live body cams of the malfunction clearing, like the Terran tactical shooter, for example, in California, she had to do that to save her life.
Right. Yeah. And if you've drilled it, then it's usually going to be automatic. Right. And that's, so for all my classes, I tell folks, go slow. We're going slow on everything. We're going super slow. But when you get into malfunctions, I say, this is the only thing I want you to do fast. I want it to be absolutely automatic. If you come up and you press and that trigger goes click, I want you to go tap rack and get back to shooting immediately.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that student knows that because it's super important. When it comes to, body cam footage of that type of thing, some of them know how to fix malfunctions. I don't think officers are trained nearly as well as what people think they are.
Yeah.
I think our county, Roane County, I want to say they do 50 rounds a year to qualify.
It's like painful to hear that.
Yeah. So if they're not out there practicing malfunction clearing, then you can see some uncomfortable body cam footage of officers not knowing what to do to clear malfunctions. And it's super important because, the first thing I ask when we go over malfunction clearing is what's going to happen? What's more likely to happen? That you need to reload or do you need to do a malfunction? I'll say, well, reload. I say, okay, when can you have a malfunction? On the first round.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to clear that malfunction before you start working on doing like super fast John Wick style reloads.
Do you love John Wick? What he's done?
Oh yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
It's like my favorite movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say, even in the competition world too, like I teach students like, hey, you have a jam, instead of like taking the mag out and clearing it and doing all of that, go ahead and try and work and see if you can get your slide. And that's the biggest thing when I watch people compete, and I've done it, and you don't think about it. You practice when you in the moment, you're like, oh, got it, done, back.
Yeah.
That happened in a live match. People are like, you did that really fast. Like, well,
that's right. Yeah, it's I was when I was down and doing some training this year in Alabama during one of our drills, I had a stovepipe, and it was just like pop, tap rack real quick.
Yep.
And my brother who was filming me, after it was over, he's like, what did you just do? I said, oh, I cleared a malfunction. He's like, I didn't even see it.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's just like, it has to be automatic to get that cleared.
It does. That's awesome. So moving up from there, like, what do you recommend next? So defensive into like combative.
Yeah, so the combative class, we start using cover and concealment,
okay.
and we move almost the entire class.
Okay.
So during the entire class, we're constantly moving and communicating, and it just adds another layer of complexity. And it you know, I've got a series of barriers built that I use and teach people how to shoot in different positions, and we'll go over one-handed manipulations, which can be very, very tricky because hand and arm injuries occur quite frequently
Yep.
in defensive shoots. So if your arms are out here and you're getting shot at, well, your arms are out in front of you.
Yep.
There's a really good video that just came out. I'll need to see if I can find it, send it to you. An officer who gets hit in his offhand and has to use one hand to, you know, engage the threat. So one-handed manipulation is just knowing how to do it. Now, the odds of you doing that, you know, may be pretty low, but you know, this, when you encounter something new, you're not going to learn it on the fly.
No.
So you need to know how to do it beforehand. And if you already had some training on how to do that, that's pretty important. And most of the time, once we get done with all that, that's eaten up the 3-4 hours that they're there.
That's awesome. How clothing? Let's talk clothing really quick.
Sure.
God, I mean, I don't know how to get it. Like, people take a class and the people that are serious about it, they're like, I have to change my clothing. Like,
yeah.
I can't do this anymore. And you're like, yeah. So like when they show up to you, whether it's defensive or combative, you know, you have the recommendation, of course, of pants, belt, whatever, concealed holster. That's not always the case though. So you want to talk about like what people should actually start thinking about when it comes to wardrobe?
Yeah. So when you carry a firearm, you got to change your entire wardrobe. Yep. You got to change it around a lot, and you got to figure out, okay, first you got to figure out how are you going to carry. So it's either appendix or strong side, whatever you want to do. So I will tell you that I was against appendix carry for a long time. And that came from, you know, Tiger.
Tiger, as I'll say.
Yeah, it came from him. It's like, no, you can't do appendix carry. I took a CQC course, an extreme close quarters combat course from Craig Douglas in North Carolina, March this year.
And who's Craig for people listening?
So Craig Douglas, he is the founder of ShivWorks. He teaches close quarters stuff. He was a former undercover narcotics officer. And so all of his stuff, you know, when you're doing narcotics stuff, like if I was dealing drugs, you're not like stretching your arm way out and going, yeah, here you go, here's your drugs. You're right next to somebody. So he was in cars, he was in rooms, he was in very close quarters when he was doing all these deals. And he quickly found out that the training he got was no good.
That's garbage. Yeah.
It was total crap. So he developed his own training program, and like, so he's absolutely legit. He's much like Tiger is, very calm, explains everything, which is like, so so for folks out there who watch this, if you have an instructor that tells you here's how you do something and they don't give you an explanation on why you should do it, leave that class
or demonstrate if they can't demonstrate anything.
Right. But there has to be a reason behind every single action. And he explained all the actions, all the reasons behind it. So we use simunitions, we fought on the ground, we fought in a car, we fought standing up, very close, wrestling with people. And about half the folks had appendix carry, half folks had strong side carry. And the end result was the exact same. It didn't matter.
So that's what changed your mind on like.
Yes.
Placement.
So for me, I tried it out. It was just too uncomfortable for me. It may have been the holster, maybe in the gun. You know, I carry a Glock 19, so it's
that's a bigger, yeah,
it's a bigger gun. So for me, it just didn't work. I was just more comfortable strong side, and you know, I feel fine with that. And like I said, there was no difference in how the fights went.
Raw or fight, yeah. The other thing too with close combats too is actually that's when the one-handed shooting can sometimes come into play, right? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely.
Really, first shot is right here before you can even maybe never get the other hand out. So people have no clue that you're really going to be not supportive perfectly.
Oh, no.
You're wonky. You might be sideways.
Very, very little of our shooting was fully extended, because if someone is within what we call wingspan, which is in touching distance, you would never extend that gun out because they can take control of it. And believe me, somebody can take control of your gun. Like action beats reaction every time.
Yep.
So if your gun is out, somebody can grab that before you can fire a shot. And we means tested that during our car battles. It was basically the bad guy was the passenger seat, he had a gun. You were the good guy, you were in the driver's seat, you had a gun. And then at some point, the bad guy would pull out his gun and try to hijack you or whatever, rob you. And in every single exercise, all 20 of them, the person who grabbed the gun first was able to control it before the bad guy could fire a shot. It was just, you can't react fast enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so back to the original question. So it's like, right. Yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
It's where to carry. So depending on how you carry is going to depend on, what your wardrobe looks like. Obviously, I like to wear tighter shirts a lot of the time, but as long as my holster is in the right place and, I've got an inside the waistband holster, even with a Glock 19 and a tighter shirt, I'd say somebody who knows what they're looking at could tell what I'm carrying. Most people can't really tell, even with a Glock 19.
Yep. So I wrote sorry to interrupt. I was gonna say I wrote a blog about like what to expect like when you're first starting out. Do you remember your first couple of weeks, by the way?
Oh yeah.
Were you sweating profusely?
I had a Glock 22, which is a full-sized 45 caliber Glock. I was wearing an outside the waistband holster, right on the point of my hip at the 3 o'clock position. My shirt's sticking way out and stuff like that. I'm constantly tugging at my shirt.
Super,
yeah. I had no idea. So that's a lot of people when they show up, we have to go through all that kind of thing. And I have to explain to them, okay, well, you're going to want to carry over here instead of right on the point of your hip. You probably want it inside the waistband holster.
Yes.
Here's how you clear the garment when you go to draw, that type of stuff. But yeah, clothing, it's especially for women.
Yeah, the leggings, ladies.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
the filster makes the Enigma. Have you seen that?
I saw that. I want to try it. Looks
it's pretty slick.
You really can customize that too. Yeah. I mean, but then you go back to skirts, dresses, and all that. I don't wear that, so I have no idea what that's like.
Yeah, me either.
Really, you don't dress up like in dresses on the weekends?
No. Can't carry when I'm wearing my skirt.
Man, I love it. Going in loops though too. That first like concealed carry moment, like you said, you know what to loop for, right? So there are a ton of people out there, surprised that concealed carry, and people are oblivious because there's 90% that have no freaking clue. So even if you have a full size, even if you have it in the waistband, you're concealed carrying, there's printing or what have you, there is so many people not watching.
No, there really aren't. I'm watching, I've taught my wife to watch and she'll point it out every once in a while, but for most of the population, they don't know.
No. And I wanted to go in another loop-de-loop too. What are your thoughts on open carrying and why?
So as a defensive firearms instructor, I never recommend open carrying. I guess it has its time and place. So if I go for a hike, every once in a while, so I've got a custom holster that attaches to the appendix part of my backpack that I carry. So I do some long distance hiking. I've hiked 240 miles of the Appalachian Trail, and I'll do that, every once in a while. But on the appendix part of the support band that runs around your backpack, it's super easy to tuck something right there. Mm-hmm. But even there, it can get uncomfortable as you're walking. Your arm can rub against it, stuff like that. And there's just no way to clear a garment and draw from that position. Yeah. But just out and about, I don't recommend open carrying. It's if you want to do it, that's your right to do it. But I don't recommend it. There's too many videos, surveillance videos of guys getting their guns snatched out of their holster by somebody. Yep. So it's just not a good idea to do it.
And if you go back to like even concealed and you're pulling out and someone grabs it, that's exactly what they're going to do. And say like you're the only one with a gun around and a situation goes down, you're going to be the target for them to disarm you first, and then everybody's screwed, right? You want that surprise factor on the side. Anyways.
Yeah.
Just wanted people to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing I wanted to ask, and it's okay to be brutally honest with this one, Tim. How does it at all? How does competition shooting, whether it's IDPA, USPSA, all of that, does it help with defensive, tactics and all of that, or does it make it worse? Like cover, concealment, all of that.
Yeah. So competition is a game, right? I've done some competition shooting, and you're constantly gaming it, right? You're like, okay, if I can transition from here to here, and then I can do a reload here and plan everything out, get all that stuff going. And obviously there's nobody shooting back at you. And there's some really creative stages every once in a while. I remember one, we were in a porta potty, and then they opened the door and we had to draw from seated position a porta potty and stuff like that. So
like that.
Yeah. It's just like, whatever happens every day, right? Have to shoot from a porta potty. But the one thing I think competition shooting is great for, especially like an IDPA, is gear testing.
Yes.
Like you can figure out, this gear works, right? Yeah. This mag pouch is in the right position. Like when I go to do my reloads, everything's perfect. Is my gun working right? And you see a lot of guns malfunction out in the competition world. But I think just getting trigger press, actually moving while shooting, because that's super important in defensive firearms shooting, learning how to move and shoot, how to stay behind cover, how to lean out from cover. And it, leaning out from cover during matches is not nearly the same as what it would be in an actual defensive shoot.
Yeah.
But you can still kind of get that, okay, I need to make sure that I'm tucked in behind this and lean out and shoot. I'm tucked behind cover when I reload, that type of stuff, clearing malfunctions, that type of stuff. So I think the biggest thing for me was gear test.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Retention, guys, because my mag fall out. That's not going to help you.
Nope.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to laugh about is that when you talked about the porta potty, I think I pee in more porta potties or like in the woods. No, this is real at ranges because they don't have enough.
Oh no.
They don't have bathrooms, and females are screwed. So it's like that is actually when it'll happen.
Yeah, that's unfortunately I don't have a bathroom at my range.
I'm saying.
So I have to preface every email with, just so you're aware, there is no bathroom at my range. I've got the woods and that's it.
Yep. So my gun, my cart thingy is right next to me. I have all my 3-gun stuff. There's toilet paper in there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I've been there. Okay. So anything else you want to touch about with like your handgun training stuff?
As far as the classes go, no, it's when you get into those classes, you'll realize that, we could teach a ton of like really tactical stuff and go over all these really cool drills, like hanging upside down and shooting, crawling under your car and all this other stuff. But you really want stuff to be practical. And I tell everybody, hey, look, all these things on their own are not complicated. They're super simple. They're very, very simple. But once you start stacking everything, that's when you can start to get complicated.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I wish people would do more is force on force stuff, because you will see somebody's real level of defensive training when they do force on force. Like when somebody's running at them with a fake knife or drawing an airsoft gun, you see very, very quickly that stress level go through the roof and people just fall down to whatever level of training that they're at.
Yep.
So force on force, I wish everybody would do. I wish every police department would have that several times a year, because that is the true means test. That's as close as you can get to real life without getting shot.
Yeah. The other thing, I know we're on tangents, but this is brilliant. Can you talk about like concealed carry, or not concealed carry, but like carrying in your home? Like people, they come home, they're like, oh, I'm lax about it. I'll just set this down. I'll put this in my safe. I'll unload my gun. Like, it's just, I don't know. I take mine everywhere. I have mine next to me when I work. Like if your gun is not here or whatever, then what?
Yeah, if you're wearing pants, you should be carrying a gun.
Yeah.
Just go on YouTube and look up home invasions, and that'll make you want to carry a gun in your house. Because right now it takes about 8 seconds for somebody to kick in your door and find your master bedroom.
Yeah.
That's not enough time to open your safe. It's not enough time to run to the closet, or not enough time to run to your nightstand.
Nope.
By the time you register what's happening, it's too late. So I get crap for it.
I do too.
Oh, why are you carrying at home? Why are you carrying in your house? What are you afraid of? It's like, listen, if somebody, because as much as you want to think about it, your house is not impervious whatsoever. Like if I didn't have to worry about forensics or getting caught or whatever, I can get in anybody's house in about 3 seconds. I can get in. I can throw a brick through a window. I can throw a chair through a window. I can kick open the front door or the back door, which is usually never as secure as the front door.
Yeah.
All it takes is one kick. I'm in your house.
Yep.
And then all I got to do is run in, find out where you're at, or find out where your bedroom's at, that type of stuff. And that is not enough time for somebody to react.
No.
So I tell people, carry all the time, even in your house.
Yep. Yeah. People make fun of me, but one of the comforting things, I guess, just I know I go back to competition, is like when I have people stay over for competitions on weekends, like it's normal. Like we're in a room, or if we do lay down or watching the couch or on the couch, and it's not wearing pants, whatever, but putting the gun on the counter, or putting the gun right next to you, or under your pillow, or it's a normal thing, I guess. And like when, again, traveling, I remember with Malin, Gabe, and my friend Andy and I, we all came out and we're just, we've got our holster and our guns and we're all loaded. And I feel like you all should have your own firearm. I mean, even Malin, who is this newer, like, concealed carry person and shooter, she had it. Nobody's responsible for other people, right? You are.
That's right.
So, what happens if she goes to the bathroom and then we leave or something, anyways.
Yep.
I love this kind of stuff. Okay, let's move into carbine.
Okay.
So kind of same-ish. There's a whole difference in, size and length and all that.
Yeah.
Well, talk to me about like the defensive and the combative carbine classes.
Yeah, so defensive carbine classes, we start out how to set up a defensive rifle, because a defensive rifle obviously is much different than a competition rifle or a target rifle or a hunting rifle.
Not obvious, so you can explain that.
Yeah, so defensive rifles, you got two things. So here's my defensive carbine.
That's cool.
It's super simple.
Lightweight.
And it's lightweight. It's just a hair over 5 pounds. Because when you're toting something like this for 8 hours during a class, the weight of this thing matters. Like every ounce matters. And then it has to be really simple. So I've got a red dot. It's a SIG Romeo 5 with the shake awake. It just comes on. It's very nice. Backup iron sights. They're fixed, right? They're not flip ups. So they stay up. That way I don't have to dick around with trying to hit them if I need to. The charging handle is a certain brand. So down at Shootrite, we have tested every single charging handle you can possibly think of. This is the only one that has not sheared in half.
Okay, what is it?
Hang on. Let me look at my website real quick and I will tell you.
It's not the Raptor, is it?
No, it is not a Raptor.
I like the Raptor.
It is one that people don't really know about. It is the TAC Ops CQB charging handle.
Okay, write that down, folks. That's awesome to know. Okay.
Yeah, if you go to lfxtraining.com, my gear recommendations are on the website.
Yeah, he's got all these resources.
This is the only one that we found that would not break, because these things will torque and stuff like that. If you torque it pretty bad, you can snap these things in half.
Thanks, Malin.
We've seen it.
She's done it.
Yeah, I've seen it. You're like, oh, it's a charging handle. It's made of aluminum or steel or whatever. They will snap right in half.
Yeah.
This is the only one we found that doesn't. It's oversized, which I always recommend. Hey, if you're going to change something, change the charging handle, because your standard AR comes with that teeny tiny charging handle. And I need to be able to grab this with one hand.
Yep.
Fixed length stock. So for most people, like 99% of the population, this fixed length stock is going to fit. So you don't have to worry about moving it back and forth to figure out where the right length is, right length of pull and all that kind of stuff. The collapsible stocks are good for folks that have to get in and out of vehicles.
Yeah.
A lot, like helicopters or cars or things like that.
Yeah.
For most of the folks, a fixed length stock is going to work. And the thing with that is, like, if I have to do that malfunction to clear this by doing the mortar strike malfunction, I don't have to collapse the stock first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And go watch some videos of people getting their hands caught in the stock when they try to do that.
Oh yeah. We were talking about mortaring shotguns actually today with a friend.
Nice.
But yeah, no, that's not fun.
And then everything else. So, the trigger I changed out. It's a, hang on, let me look that one up too. Sorry.
Tim's a great salesman.
Yeah, sorry. The trigger is an ALG.
Okay.
So when you get into defensive firearms use, you hear, okay, well, I want that light trigger. I want the really, really, really light trigger. It's like, nobody's gone to jail for a light trigger, but you could spend several $100,000 in court defending the use of a lighter trigger. There have been cases where people had to defend themselves and say, okay, well, why'd you put that really, really, really light trigger in your gun? And they had to defend themselves, and it could cost you a lot of money. So the trigger is not light, but it's very, very crisp, right? Yeah. So it's been polished and everything like that. And that's what you want, because if you pull a stock AR trigger, if you're trigger snobs like we are, they're just trash.
It's disgusting. I can't even, people like show me a rifle and I'm like, I don't want to play with it if the trigger isn't changed out. So I'm good. Like, it's just.
Yeah. And then, a sling is an absolute must.
2-point, right?
Yeah, 2-point sling. Nobody uses single point slings anymore. It's all 2-point sling.
I know people.
Yeah, some people do, but they're dumb.
Yeah, 2-point.
A single point sling, especially for a guy, because when you drop that and it swings down, it's coming straight down at you. So you want that 2-point. And then as far as a light goes, I use this the Surefire Super Tac X. It's super bright and it projects that tight beam. So even out to like 200 yards, I can identify what I'm shooting at.
That's cool.
So I shot this in the dark at 100 yards. I just got to tap it on real quick. I could spot the target, turn it off, and make hits on that target without even seeing the target.
And then barrel length is 16?
Yeah, so this is a 16 barrel. I mean, I'm not hung up on barrel length.
No, I'm just curious. And then flash hider or muzzle brake? Or...
Yeah, so it's a flash hider, but I bought this because I've got a suppressor that I'll throw on this every once in a while when I want to, not annoy the neighbors. And really, that's about it. There's nothing complicated about this. You want it to be nice and simple, because folks that come out with ARs that have a bunch of crap hanging all over them, they figure out very quickly, hey, stuff's getting knocked off, like some lights that have the wire that runs down here. I've seen those get caught in stuff, rip the lights off.
The press pad.
Yeah. So you just want something really, really simple, really lightweight, and reliable.
Yep.
And that's about it for your defensive carbine. And then, for my carbine classes, there's not a whole lot different than the handgun classes. It's just the gear is different.
And maneuvering.
Everything else is going to be pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Right. There's a few different things to learn. And in the very beginning carbine class, we go over how to lubricate everything, how to tear it down. I talk about how it should be set up, stuff like that. But then everything else, it's the same, right? Move, communicate, shoot if necessary. And you're doing all the same sorts of things.
Yeah.
And then if somebody wants to come out and take the handgun carbine course, we talk about how to transition, but it's all the same stuff. It's just a different platform.
How about this too? Maybe not, maybe so. I feel like sometimes retaining magazines comes into play ish, maybe in combative, maybe not. I mean, depends.
I think the last time I used an AR mag pouch was probably like 10 years ago.
Okay.
Like I can fit 2 AR mags in my back pocket in my jeans.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you think about it,
female pants don't do that.
Yeah, because you guys don't have pockets or whatever.
Okay, you get it.
And if you got cargo pants, that's even more pockets, right?
Yeah.
So when I recently took a class from a training group that will remain unnamed because the class was terrible.
Fair.
It was a carbine class, and these people had like tack vests and all this stuff hanging off of them. This one guy had a radio on his back. like, God, what are you doing? You calling in airstrikes or something? I don't know what's. And all these people had all this stuff all over them. I'm walking out there with just my AR and a couple of mags in my back pocket.
Yeah.
It's just like, why do you guys have all this stuff? You're not gonna go to your car and throw on your vest.
Shopping.
You're not gonna have all this stuff on you. If you have to use this for self-defense, it's gonna be in your house, more than likely.
Yep.
Or around your house or on your property, something like that. So you're not gonna be throwing on a vest or any garbage like that. So super simple. I mean, mag pouches are really good, but you can pretty much do everything you want by just throwing your mags in your pockets.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's like if I've got a mag loaded up in my AR and I got 2 in my back pocket, that's 75 rounds.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Huh. So yeah, handgun carbine. That's a good one though. People, I see a lot of pistol shooters that have no clue how to transition or run 2 guns or master 2 platforms or think about all of that, which is the difference.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and then the other one that I love that you do is kind of cool, vehicle defense.
Yeah, so using a gun in and around your vehicle, and a lot of people don't even think about that. There's a lot going on. That can get super complicated.
Yeah.
And that's something that if you've never done it before, you can really get a lot of stuff messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Just like even how to get your gun out of the holster. I'm wearing a seatbelt. How do I move my hands? I got to swim underneath this. I got to go here. I got to, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And, shifting your body to move in around the vehicle. Okay, do I need to get out of the vehicle? Once I get out of the vehicle, what do I do? How do I move? There's a lot of stuff going on, and people just don't understand.
Love it.
All the nuances behind, fighting in and around your vehicle.
Yeah. Or like if the carbine is somewhere in the vehicle. Are you a fan too of like the mounts for pistols? On the cars? Yeah. One right there, fully loaded, like what? Or Matt.
Yeah, it's just like wear it on your holster. What if you get into an accident? That thing's gonna go flying and you will have no idea where it's at in your car. Just leave it in your holster.
It's insane. Yeah. So interesting. Anything else you want to touch about? I know you do private too, and you have women's classes, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
Anything else you want to do that before we close out that section?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, that's that covers pretty much all the classes that I teach. I would like to do more shotgun stuff, but that is not a very popular class.
I know. It's so sad.
Yeah, you shoot several hundred rounds of shotgun in a day, you're kind of done. So you don't get a whole lot of people that want to come out and learn the shotgun.
So much fun. Oh, anyway.
It is fun. It's very fun.
Yeah, not as practical. Yeah, well. Okay, so all these certifications, and we'll go through a lot of them because I just think they're awesome. But you did get the NRA certification, which you kind of have to teach when you're not military law enforcement, blah, blah, blah. That's the class. But you have the Tennessee State certification for teaching classes, but then you have a lot that instructors don't have. So, we were talking about a little bit about instructors, and I don't want to diss a lot of them, but a lot of them are out there to make a buck, right?
Sure.
They do the basics and they're like, yep, got it. I'm going to make some money. No. I'm going to list these off, but you have high angle rescue, you have confined space rescue, you have hazardous material emergency. You probably have some more. This is just the ones I pulled off your website. What are those?
Yeah. So those I actually got through my work. So I work in a industrial manufacturing facility.
Cool.
I'm a data analyst. That's what I do there. So I ride a desk, but we have a lot of vessels, tanks, stuff like that. We have a lot of really high elevated platforms. We also use a lot of hazardous materials at the plant. Yeah. So through our work, we could opt in to be on like our hazardous materials team, our confined space rescue team, the high angle rescue team, stuff.
You
like
did all of it.
Yeah. So I did all of it.
You overachiever.
Yeah. So they would come in and we get annual training every year. We go over all this stuff, but learned a lot about, doing like high angle rescue is probably the most fun because you get to play with a lot of ropes and harnesses and build haul systems and, learn how to, okay, if somebody's hurt down inside of a tank, I can go down, rappel down in, strap them to a stretcher, build this haul system, and get those people hauled up out of there with the rest of my team, things like that. But
wait, are these real people like during the dummy practice?
Yeah. When we practice, we have somebody, lay down the stretcher and, act like they're hurt. So we have to package them up in the stretcher and then haul them out of there. Either you can haul them vertically or horizontally, just depending on, right. Because in some of our vessels, right, the opening is like this big around. So you can't bring somebody up, horizontally. You got to turn them on their side and go up vertically straight out of the hole. And then all that stuff translates to any other place where you'd have to do high angle rescue. So it's like somebody's hurt on a ledge on a cliff or something like that. I could build a system to get somebody out of there or either lower them down.
And that's beneficial as a hiker.
Well, yeah, it could be. Yeah.
It's awesome.
And just, it's a lot of fun. It's nothing, we've had emergencies at the plant, obviously, that we've had to respond to. Usually it's mostly like a guy gets somewhere and he has like a heat stroke or, gets heat stress and passes out or something like that. We got to get him out of there. But knowing all that stuff is actually, it can be fairly practical. Like when you understand, like, okay, what is specific gravity? Like, if I know the specific gravity of a certain gas, I can tell you, hey, don't go get in the ditch because all that stuff's going to settle in a ditch. Get someplace higher, or vice versa, right? If it's something that goes up into the air, okay, let's move this way, that kind of stuff. So it has been pretty practical, and I enjoy doing it. It's just something that, we go through once a year, and I always enjoy doing it. And it's something I can always take back. Like I got a bunch of climbing gear in the garage right now. Right. So,
cool. And can civilians take these classes?
Yeah. As long as you get with the right group. Most of the time they offer them to places. Usually it's going to be places like firemen or any first responders that work in any kind of industrial environment.
Yeah. Still, I mean, I don't know, when you're on the range a lot or you travel as much as we do, or I don't know, you just never know anymore, especially with the riots too that were happening. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What is confined space rescue like?
So it's kind of the other piece of the puzzle there. So like I said, all these vessels are considered confined spaces, right? So they're a place where a person wouldn't normally be, and there's limited egress to that place.
I just thought of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much it. It could be anything. So it's basically like, okay, there's this big tank that somebody normally is not going to be in, but they go in there to do maintenance for some reason, right? So you got to figure out, okay, if that person goes down in there, how do we get them out safely? Because an alarming statistic that a lot of people don't know, because you see a lot of this in rural areas, like with wells, or any pits that are dug, or excavation projects, things like that. Those are considered confined spaces.
Yeah.
So when you think about that type of stuff, there's a shocking statistic that you could save 66% of lives in confined spaces if you never attempted a rescue. 66% of the deaths are by people who have tried to rescue other people.
Oh.
Because they didn't know what was in that confined space, and they went in and they went down themselves.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one of those things. It's like you have to weigh your life and your team's life versus the person in that confined space.
Wow.
So it's
heavy.
Yeah, it's very stressful, because when we do a lot of these drills, we're on a timer. It's like, okay, all of our stuff is packed away in the trailer. You've got 3 minutes, right? Because you got the call, you got to unload all this stuff, figure out some way to get that guy out, go in, and then get him out in less than 3 minutes.
Is this like the Kobayashi Maru test?
Yeah, that's what it is.
I have so many it's your setup for failure for some of them, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, and
if
you get there too late, it's not a rescue anymore, it's a recovery. Mm-hmm. So you got to weigh that type of stuff. And we have protocols and most places have protocols, and they say, okay, typically, so per OSHA's rules, you have to have what's called a hole watch, which is basically a person that just sits at the entrance and watches everybody. They don't do anything, they just watch people. And if something goes wrong, they radio for help. they're not even allowed to attempt a rescue.
Oh God.
Because it could be fatal.
Is there someone like with a badge, or like that's the designated person, or you just identify?
It's usually just like, usually it's like a new person.
Yeah.
They'll
Okay.
say, hey, new guy, you just sit here and keep an eye on everybody. If somebody goes down, call us on the radio.
So I probably have a dumb question with that. Do you think that training could be applicable, to like animal rescues sometimes, or no?
It could be, because like you see plenty of animals that fall into ditches and wells and things like that.
Fences.
And you have to know the basics of a haul system and rigging and things like that, because it's like, you can't just throw a rope around something and pull it out.
Oh no.
You've got to figure out, okay, so how do I make a block and tackle? Like, most people don't know that. Like, if they had all the equipment laid out in front of them, you say, okay, make a 4-to-1 block and tackle. People are gonna say, what?
Yeah.
So knowing that type of stuff, like what pieces of equipment are, right? So if somebody showed up, or let's say you were out somewhere and somebody actually did have some equipment to help somebody out, having that knowledge would be pretty good. Say, okay, yeah, I could make a block and tackle with this, or I can, even if I didn't have a block and tackle, I could use this pulley system to increase my mechanical advantage and pull somebody out of the hole much easier.
Yeah.
There's a lot of knowledge that goes into that. The average person just doesn't even have a clue about.
No, again, 90% of this population has no common sense, has no clue what's happening, and have no skills to do anything themselves.
No.
Great.
Very true.
Great. I did want to see if you have any nuggets for the hazardous material emergency. I don't know a lot. Is there like some like quick tips you could give civilians of if they see a gas leak, or smell, or a gas explosion, or I don't know, like, what do we do?
So
what should we know?
Yeah, so there's a little booklet, man. I don't have it with me. It's in my car. There's this tiny little booklet that has, like if you see a tanker driving down the road, it's got a little diamond placard on the back of it. That diamond placard has a number on it. That number indicates what's in that tank.
Okay.
So if you have that little booklet, and let's say that tanker falls over and spills stuff out of it, you can look that up really quickly in that booklet and say, okay, this is this, and it will tell you, like, here's the minimum safe distance you need to be away from that.
Cool. Okay.
And I'm sure there's apps out there that do that. I haven't looked. Like I said, I've just got a book just in case I'm out somewhere where I don't have a good cell phone signal.
Yep.
But you can just punch that number in, and at the very least, you could say, okay, we need to be X amount of feet away from this thing.
Right. Because
it'll tell you, it'll say, here's the minimum safe distance, here's the recommended distance.
Yeah, if you
can.
If
it's something really bad, like sulfuric acid or something like that, it's like, okay, we need to be 1,000 feet away from this thing.
Yeah.
So all these people gawking that are, so all these people that are gawking that are 50 feet away say, all right, listen, you guys need to move back, because if you breathe this in, the fluid in your lungs will actually turn into sulfuric acid, and you will burn from the inside out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good thing. And I'm assuming too, your company pays for these trainings.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. That was something like, even, I digress, but like, if you have the opportunity with a job, with college, or anybody listening, like to get certifications, whether it's for, medical or whatever, do it and take it. I mean, I remember it's so silly, but like when I was teaching or working at the university and I already had my master's degree, I was thinking about getting another one because it'd be paid for, but I was like, I'm not sadistic, but I got free library books. I had so much reading that I did, and I got I got like another certification. I got my project management certification. Like, I was just like, certifications.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. If you get somebody else to pay for your education, jump in with both.
Check. The other thing I want to mention or talk about a little bit, you have really impressive credentials, and like legit, nobody would like kind of question. Like, you can always question instructors, right? Ask questions. I think a lot of people are afraid to do that.
For sure.
Can you touch on how sometimes certifications like doesn't really mean anything, like the NRA one sometimes?
Yeah.
And can you touch on a little bit like about what to ask an instructor to vet them?
Yeah. So for instructors, really when I'm in a class, I'm looking for how they teach, really, more than certifications.
Yeah.
So there's another couple of big ones that are touchy with some folks, and that's military and police. That is not the be all end all for an instructor. Like if somebody was a clerk in the Army for 2 years, then I'm, the odds of them being decent at firearms instruction is probably not great.
Yeah.
And the same way with police officers. We talked about, the training requirements for police officers is usually really low, and that's not their fault. It's because, it's budgetary issues, it's things like that. And, just because someone used to be a cop, and we've got plenty of them at the place that I work, and I would not take a firearms class from any of them.
Sorry.
Yeah. So now also, I would also look at lineage, be it like we talked about before, like where did your instructor learn from?
Yeah.
Right? And if it was just the Army,
Sorry.
okay, maybe, that guy may be a really good instructor.
Yeah.
Maybe. But just because they were in the Army or a police officer does not necessarily mean they're a good instructor. But also, like good instructors, they're going to have years of experience. They're going to have some bona fides, right? So they're going to be, they say, okay, here's some classes they've taken. I also tell people, see if they have some former students that you could talk to, former or current students, and ask them what they think. Now for some classes, hey, that may not work, but I would see what their experience is, what their lineage is, who did they learn from, and then if all that checks out, go take a class. And you might be out a few $100, sure, but in this class that I took last time, the one that I wasn't happy, I did pick up a little tidbit of information that I could have gotten in 10 minutes from a PowerPoint presentation, but it was something I'd never seen before. But I was just like, okay, I can take this with me.
Yeah, you're gonna learn something. It's just not worth the time, money, and effort.
True. Yeah, very true.
But I think a lot of people are afraid to ask questions of instructors. I mean, I'll be honest, I've had a lot of instructors that teach and they don't carry, they don't have their gun on them at that point. They're not serious about that, right? And again, I'm not talking about competitions all the time. That's who I am, right? Sure. Do they compete? Have they shot a different like carbine, rifle, shotgun? Oh, I said the same thing. Carbine, pistol, shotgun. Like, are they proficient? The other thing that's out there is the medical training that instructors like do or don't have. Sometimes it's like general CPR, first aid. Like, I don't know, do they even carry tools on them? Do they have a knife? There's just something that I look for of like, if you're not even equipped with some of those, how are you teaching some of this stuff?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And I personally, I think there's a few minimum medical things that instructors need to have with them: tourniquets, Israeli battle dressing, things like that. And there's some minimum stuff in there. I don't need them to have a full, field surgery kit. Yeah. But something to keep me alive long enough until the paramedics get there. Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah. And do you touch on that when people come in, like your like safety brief is what are we gonna do in case of emergency in a class?
Yeah, always. It's one of those things that you pretty much have to go over and say, okay, here's what's gonna happen in case of an emergency, right?
Yeah. And you say that nonchalant. There's people like in Florida, it's different training than Tennessee. It's not a PowerPoint with that in it. Anyways. Give me a little pitch. How are you different from other instructors out there?
Well, that's a good question, since I haven't taken a lot of classes from any local instructors. But I think I bring a different perspective based on who I have trained under. So I've received some of the best training in the nation, in my opinion, and I always bring that back with me, right? So for folks who come to see me, they are getting the exact same training as if they had gone to Tiger McKee. I teach his material. And that was one of the things that I agreed to with Tiger. He said, hey, if you're going to learn under me, I want you to teach my material. And I believe in what he teaches. Yeah. Right? So everything he teaches makes sense. And it all has a purpose. It all has a reason. There's no fluff around it, right? Yeah. Like I said, there's nothing complicated about what we do.
Yeah.
It's all very simple, but you have to stack everything and continue learning after that and start stacking all that stuff.
Can you say that for the people in the back? Did you say continue learning?
Continue learning, always. And I'm a trainer. I've got a lot of experience. I train under one of the best trainers in the nation, but I still go take training from other people.
Yeah.
I think there's little tidbits out there that you can grab and take back with you.
Yep.
So yeah, always get more training.
I needed that. So what do you wish more civilians, or just people, okay, well, we'll talk about like the Tennessee law changing, but like, what do you wish more people knew or understood about getting proper firearms training? Why it is important, why it matters, why, even if you have constitutional carry, why you should do it?
Well, there's the old adage, right? You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of training.
Yep.
And if you've had zero training, that is the level you will fall to.
Yeah.
And I see it during force on force classes all the time. People who have very little training or who don't practice that training will fall back to whatever they reverted to. And you see it in even the most basic classes, right? So we were to teach beginners classes. You say, okay, here's how you hold a gun. And then when you get onto the range, they start, like crossing thumbs and doing this stuff. They're like, okay, stop. Let's fix your grip. Why are you doing it that way? I don't know. I got a little stressed out and immediately reverted back to what they thought.
Yeah.
So getting that training and practicing that training is going to help you in a defensive situation, because you don't learn things on the fly.
No.
You don't figure out what works in the 1.5 seconds it takes for somebody to attack you.
Yeah.
So having that training and having kind of that instinctual training is super important in defensive firearms use.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, you talked about the grip. Every single time they go on the range, and it happens with new people and old people, they don't check the 17 things they have to think about. I say 17, but it's practice is when you need to stop. And it's a lot. It's for not moving, right? Stance and grip and sight alignment and trigger and prepping the trigger and learning all of that. It's too much and it's overwhelming, but they just go back, like you said, thumb behind it, crossing thumbs, teacup, they don't stop. If you don't stop, you're worse. Like, you're better off if you're having a bad day to stop shooting, right? Than just keep going and practicing bad habits.
And that's one of those things I emphasize in either the beginners classes or the concealed carry or carry classes in Tennessee. It's, we talk about, okay, this is the very tip of the iceberg, and this really isn't defensive training. Mm-mm. And then I go over the example of like the Tueler drill, the 21-foot rule. Say, okay, how fast do you think it takes somebody to cover 21 feet? You're like, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. So it's 1.5 seconds.
Yeah.
That's for the average person. I said, can you get your gun out of the holster in 1.5 seconds? And then I asked everybody in the class, how many here have actually trained on how to get a gun out of a holster? And inevitably, no one raises their hands. And I think that's a huge wake-up call for them to realize, okay, maybe I actually should get at least training on the basic fundamentals of using a gun for self-defense, because just shooting a gun accurately is about this much of defensive firearm shooting.
100%. I love this. So talking about constitutional carry, I know July 1st, Tennessee passed the constitutional carry, and there's other states doing that too. So I have a couple of questions. We'll break them down. What do you think about this for our Second Amendment rights?
I'm in favor of it.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, aren't you going to lose money?" It's like, yeah, I don't care. I hate teaching the carry classes anyway. To be honest,
I knew I'll wait for that.
I absolutely hate teaching the carry classes.
It sucks, y'all. We have to read word for free.
Yeah, word for word out of the PowerPoint.
Slides are wrong. Like,
I hate it. I hate it so much. So I'm glad that we don't have to have the government's permission to exercise a right.
Yeah.
But as a trainer, I think everybody should get training.
Yeah, that's where
everybody should get training, but I don't think it should be government mandated.
Yeah. And that's the thing. How do you do both, right? Not lose your rights, but then try and require training. It's it's a struggle. And that's what people don't understand. So they're just like, oh, I passed it. There was some person was like, oh, I passed, I'm fine now. I was like, yeah, for the state of Tennessee, you step into a different state after that and they don't have it. And then what?
Yeah.
Like, bye, you're illegal.
Yep. Yeah.
So we're
There's
not.
still, I mean, there's actually still quite a few benefits to getting your permit.
Yeah.
Like
Reciprocity.
like
FFL
reciprocity, carrying in parks and greenways and stuff like that. So there's benefits to getting the permit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am glad that you don't have to have a permit though.
Yeah, for sure. And then I kind of touched on it, but what do people or most people not understand about constitutional carry outside of their state or about other states' legislature? I can't say that.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so it's and I emphasize this in my classes and say, listen, if you're gonna carry a gun, you have to be a student of firearm law.
Yeah.
You got to know the laws, the current laws, and you got to stay up on new laws when they pass. And if you go to a different state, you have to know those states' laws. And maybe you might have to know what the city law is or the county law is. So you really have to know a lot about firearms law in order to carry a gun. But as far as constitutional carry goes, right, you've got to know what's going on in other states now. So if you choose not to get a permit and you're going to go to another state, you got to know what's going on in that state.
I mean, the other one was like the Cherokee National Forest. That's
right
land, and that changes things too, which is they're in favor, of course, but for certain places, some not. The other confusing thing is like there's some signage that's outdated where it's like, oh, you can carry in these places, but the signage is still there. It says you don't. We're like, huh?
Yeah. So if you read up on that law, so especially like in state parks and stuff where it says no guns allowed, when they wrote the law, they said that they only had to change the signs when the signs needed updated. So if the sign is when that law passed, they didn't have to change it. So there's a lot of like people roll into a state park and they say, oh, there's no guns in here. I thought we could have guns in here. Yeah, there's a lot of confusion behind it. But if you are a student of law, then you would understand that.
Yeah. And if they had some pro Second Amendment people, maybe they would take the sign down.
Yeah.
Cool.
Spray paint over it.
Right.
State park.
Okay, so what is the coolest experience you've ever had? Not Thunder Ranch yet.
No.
What's the coolest thing you've ever done?
So I was thinking about this, and I think it was when I went and did first person defender with Gun Talk Media.
Cool.
So that's that Tom Gresham I mentioned earlier. So he runs Gun Talk Media. So they have a YouTube page that does a lot of gun stuff. Media.
That's what you were talking about?
Yes, that is Tom Gresham, same guy.
Okay.
Same guy. But, so they do this series called First Person Defender. And what they do is they put somebody into a scenario. They don't tell them what's going to happen. They just say, you're in this scenario and stuff happens. And you basically react to it. And they had a series of videos on, you can go on YouTube and watch them right now. And they put out like essentially a casting call. Said, hey, if you want to be on one of these, shoot us an email or send us a video of yourself and explain why you want to be on it. It's like, oh, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I just filmed myself and explained who I was and why I wanted to do it. And it was like a day later, somebody emailed me. It was like, hey, can you come down to Baton Rouge and shoot this video? I was like, yeah, let's do it. So I went down to Baton Rouge at this huge training facility and got to be, good guy with a gun. So Chris Serino, who was in Top Shot, he was the host of the show. So I got to meet him. I actually got to go out to dinner with him and Tom Gresham that evening. They invited me out to dinner, which was super cool. And I did the scenario. I forgot what season it was and what episode, but I'm on there. And yeah, it's just me. They interview me at first and I go in and we're in this tiny, tiny little space. It's probably, so like from here to where you see the wall is, it's probably about that big. And there were like 3 cameramen in there and 3 other people and Chris and, this guy's walking around, he's agitated and he's yelling at people. And he eventually like starts wrestling with a guy, like goes down on the ground with him. I never shot him in the first scenario. I did draw my gun, which I probably shouldn't have done. They edited out though. This is the only part that pisses me off. So they edited this part out because Chris Serino interviews me afterwards and says, okay, what were you thinking? What was this? Blah, 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 blah. So originally in the video, I thought, when he went to the ground with the guy, he was kind of wrestling around with him. I said, I thought he was going to draw a knife. So I drew my gun because I didn't want to be behind the 8-ball on that.
Yeah.
But they cut all that out.
You just feel like
And they were just like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have drawn your gun. I was like, okay. Anyway, and then they do another scenario right after that one. So in the next scenario, the guy actually shoots the clerk and I draw and shot him.
Okay.
But the cool part is I was listening to the podcast or the radio show the Sunday after they did it, and they were really complimentary of my performance. And I was so happy with it. I was like sharing it with people and like showing my dad, and I was like, listen to what they said. It's actually on my website. So if you go to the Meet Your Trainer section, I actually cut that little section of audio out. And I was super proud of myself for doing that. But that was really a lot of fun. I actually got to be a bad guy in the next scenario for the next person that came later on in the day. So
you didn't know these people, right?
Oh no, not a clue. I didn't know who they were. They just showed up, and I was just like, because they were looking around. They're like, oh, what are we going to do for this next one? It's like, all right, somebody want to get shot? I was like, I'll do it. You can go ahead and shoot me. They're like, all right, Tim's going to be the bad guy.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that was really fun. I really enjoyed that.
Do they still do that?
I think so. Okay. I believe they're still doing it. And that's one of those things that's, not only was it just fun for me, it's one of those things that you can actually see how people react. It's all force on force. They use simunitions. And it's force on force stuff, and you can see how people react to things. And it's like, there's the old fight or flight adage, right? But what's the third one? Freeze. Which is what most people do anyway. As humans, like, we have to take that information in first. So if you've never seen something, the first thing you're going to do is freeze.
Dear.
So and one of the things I use as an example is the White Settlement church shooting. Remember that? Jack Wilson. So if you watch the video, the first 2 shots go off and everybody in the congregation freezes.
Yeah.
Nobody fights. Nobody runs away. They all freeze, which is a very, very common reaction to when something stressful happens.
Oh yeah.
So, you get to see a lot of that stuff, and it's really good examples. So and they're only like 10, 15 minutes long.
Yeah.
And you can scrub through all the ads and all that kind of stuff. I guess I shouldn't say that, but whatever. But it's, if you scrub through all that, they're very, very short, and you can get a lot of good information and see how people react and kind of like process that and go, oh, how would I react in that sort of thing?
Yep. And you don't know is the answer.
No, you don't.
Don't know.
You don't.
Till you add some pressure and go to a class, figure it out.
Right. Go to force on force class and get your butt kicked.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Little tidbit, and this is so off tangent. Our industry is pretty small. So when you're dropping these names like that they're big deal. And I'm not saying they're not a big deal, right? They're a big deal for people who like look up to these people and like, oh my God, you know him, you've met him. But when you get in the industry, it's just normal. I feel like for some of us. Yeah. So you feel like you forget those experiences that people have, like, this person or you do this. And it's for us, it's like, well, there's only 3 of us that do that. Right?
Yeah. And everybody in this industry is like super nice, so down to earth, right? So when I went out to dinner, it wasn't like I wasn't starstruck. It was just like I was having a conversation with friends, right? Yep. So it's just everybody is super nice in this industry, and I wish more people knew that from outside of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Or that people are willing to help. Or the other thing too is surrounding yourself with your people, or with people that can bring you up or you can learn from, like, or, even if they're on like I'm below you on a trainer's level, but there's things that I could teach you too. So there's things out there that people don't understand.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's pretty cool. So what are your goals next? Like what are you working towards, or do you have any?
So I just got my building done, which I'm super excited about that. I actually have a space where people can come and be in the shade for a little bit. So it's just more of a evolution, right? So I've been doing this for well over 15 years now, and it's just kind of slowly evolving, right? Nothing is happening fast.
Yes.
The old adage or joke is like, it took me 20 years to become an overnight sensation.
I was about to say, if there was one thing I could have people understand about entrepreneurship, right? They're like, oh my God, you do this is how, like, your life, you're lucky you're lucky is the worst that I hear, right? It's like,
right.
I have been busting my ass since I first picked up a gun and shot this match, and then doing this marketing and now doing this podcast. Like you have to put the work in of consistency. And like you said, 15 years is a long time, but it's also like a short one in entrepreneurship, I guess.
Yeah. And I tell people this all the time, if I could do firearms training full time and it would just pay the bills, I don't have to make millions of dollars. If I would just pay the bills, I would do it full time in a heartbeat, just because I really enjoy it. But it's it's one of those things that as the clientele base builds and as more word gets out, I'm teaching more and more and more classes. So I usually I teach a class once every 6 months when I first started. And then now it's like, okay, I'm probably teaching something every weekend, almost every weekend.
Yeah.
But I love doing it. And it's just one of those things. It's like, if I could just keep snowballing this and just keep on doing what I'm doing, I don't have to open a huge facility and have, like a dozen trainers working underneath me or anything like that. I am perfectly happy with just teaching classes, small classes on the weekend. I call myself like a personal trainer when it comes to firearms.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't teach huge classes of 20 people.
Nope.
Like the biggest class I'll teach is 5 people.
I was going to say that goes back to like that genuine instructor or the person that you're looking for, the questions that you're asking. I know people in Florida that would have 100 people for their CCW class. No joke. Malin's podcast. She shot a 6-shot revolver 22. They handed it to her fully loaded, had her just pull the trigger into a water bucket or a wall or something and call it a day. That's what Florida does. Here's the why. The Florida statute just says you have to live fire in front of an instructor that has the NRA, the law enforcement, blah, blah, blah credentials. Well, they learned how to game it. So live fire. Pew, that
live
counts.
Fire. It's just shoot a shot into a berm or something like that. And that's it.
And I get it. Like there's so many people out there with that mindset of like, oh, I'm around guns. I know how to carry guns. I hunt and I blah, blah, blah. So like, I just need to go take the class and get it over with rather than being open to like, okay, I should probably learn or listen or whatever. So for them, they want that 1-shot class and they're out of there with 100 people. Oh my God. So
I'm
glad you said that though. It's real.
Yes, absolutely. And people need personal attention. If you're going to learn a skill, you got to have somebody watching you. You can't have 20 people out there and everybody shooting and doing their own thing. And like the rifle course that I went to, it was just like lady next to me just couldn't figure out how to do anything. And I was just like, oh my God. And I have a hard rule that I don't do any training if I'm in somebody else's class. I let them do the training. Now, if somebody's doing something unsafe, I'll step in. But I'm not gonna coach somebody else during somebody else's class.
They need to learn that.
I just let it go. She wasn't doing anything unsafe, but it was just like I would not have let her into this class because she was so inept in what she was doing.
You need to know your level.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, well, that guy just snatched that lady's $400 and she didn't learn anything. So it's just a waste.
Yeah. I mean, I won't even go off that tangent, but frustrating. Wrapping this up towards the end, you read a lot, probably just as much as I do. I love reading. People hate it, or podcasting, whatever. What are some really good books that people should read about the defensive shooting, about personal protection, mindset, and maybe some podcasts too? What do you recommend?
So if you want to stay current on all the gun news, that the Gun Talk podcast by Tom Gresham, that's what I listen to. It comes out every Sunday. It's like 3-hour radio show, and you get all the current laws and all the laws that are coming out, and you can really, really stay up to date with all the latest stuff.
Awesome.
So that's why I listen to him, because I that's where I get all the news about laws and new gear, new guns and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
As far as books goes, there's like a tier. So when you're talking about the defensive mindset, right? So situational awareness is first and foremost.
Yep.
And what comes with situational awareness is like 70% of our body language, or 70% of our communication is body language. So any books on body language. So there's a really good book by Joe Navarro, I think. It's called What Every Body Is Saying. So he was an FBI interrogator, and he really breaks down body language and what to look for and things like that. So if you can spot somebody's body language that could be hostile, then you've already got 70% of the information that you already want.
Right.
Next would be verbal, right? So de-escalation. There's another good book called Verbal Judo. So this guy was a English professor, had a black belt in judo, and then for whatever reason decided to join the police force. So his first two encounters, the guy wasn't doing what he wanted him to do, so he just went hands-on. So he got called into the chief's office, and the chief, he thought, okay, he's gonna give me a big thumbs up and say good job. Well, he reamed him out because he said, look, you just can't be going hands-on with every single person that you meet. So he developed, as an English professor, he developed this whole thing called verbal judo, and it's basically de-escalation skills and how to talk to people and do things like that. So de-escalation is super important, right? So first we got
especially if you carry a gun.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the very, very, very last thing you want to do is pull the gun out.
Yep.
Like if all you think that you've got is a hammer, then everything's a nail.
Yeah.
If you've got other tools in your tool bag, right? So I can spot somebody that's hostile just by their body language. And then if they approach me, I can de-escalate. So those are really two good books. And then, after that, there's a lot of books on, so there's one called When Violence is the Answer. And, regardless of what your thoughts are on violence, it's during the defensive mindset. If you are faced with violence, you have to retaliate with overwhelming violence.
Yep.
You can't have any half measures when it comes to that. So I think that guy's name's Tim Larkin, but he has what's called, or the book's called When Violence is the Answer.
Yeah.
And then there's stuff after the fact, which is, On Combat. That's a good book to read. It talks about what happens after you've dealt with violence, what happens during violence, like physiologically, I think that's what it's called. So what happens physically with your body and things like that during violent encounters, and then what's going to happen after violent encounters.
Yeah.
So if I were to recommend, 4 books, I've got a whole bunch of them listed on my website, but just the 4, I would say start with those and then start going down that path.
Yeah. I want to go back to the violence thing. My poor mother won't carry. You would think that with a daughter like me, they would, but that's their personal decision. However, I think what's frustrating for me is that it happens to people that we know, and it's going to get closer and closer to home. Unfortunately, it takes an incident for someone to realize that tool that they need is a firearm, right? Yeah. And they don't understand that, okay, what if someone was trying to kill your grandbabies or like rape your daughter? All of the things that happens, you are probably going to answer violence with violence, right? But they just don't see that for themselves.
Yeah. And that's what I get a lot. It's like, I don't think I could shoot someone. It's like, okay. It's like, I don't think I could, if somebody was attacking me, I don't think I would be able to shoot them to defend myself. Like, right. Okay, well, what if someone was attacking your 9-year-old daughter? Yep. Like, oh, well, okay, mama bear, all this kind of stuff. It's like, all right, okay, that's good. Here's what's going to happen. Yeah. It's like, this is an uncomfortable statistic, but for women, 50% of the population can kill them with their bare hands.
Yep.
Men on average are 90% stronger than women.
Yep.
That's just on average. Now, obviously, yeah, there are exceptions. There absolutely are exceptions.
Yeah.
But on the average, if you're just looking at the average man pound for pound, he's almost twice as strong as a woman pound for pound. Yep. And the equalizer in that is a firearm.
It's frustrating to say this a million times. Gun rights are women's rights. And I 100% believe that. I will repeat it till I die. I just don't know what else to tell you. And you think about like the mama bear situation too. Okay. You don't want to defend yourself and keep yourself alive for your daughter. It goes back to that too. Yeah. I mean, there's so much, and it goes back to the home invasion thing too. Like, the violence is out there.
Yeah, it is.
They're there.
It absolutely is.
Grocery stores, churches, homes, like you wouldn't believe it because some people just don't want to see it either, Yeah.
So. Yeah. And it's especially for women, that firearm is an absolute equalizer. It's like my women's situational awareness class that I teach us, like the odds of you winning a physical fight with a man are pretty low. If you go hands-on with a man, the odds of you winning that, even if like regardless of training level. Now, like I said, I take jujitsu. Yeah. And there are several women in there who will mop the floor with me.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
but not me.
That's after 10 years of jujitsu, right? So if you put in that work and you stay on top of it, okay, you can win that fight. But for most of the population, right, going hands-on is going to be a losing battle, and that firearm is the equalizer in that case.
Yeah. I know we went super long. This has been awesome. I don't even want to stop, but I want to open this up to you. Is there anything else you want to leave people with, or any other topic you want to talk about? Just it's just been awesome.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed this.
It's awesome.
Just get training. That's all there is to it. It's a video on YouTube is not going to help you. You may be able to glean some information from that, but unless you have someone looking and coaching you, then you don't know what you don't know, right? And that's the biggest thing with firearms instruction. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you don't know what that is, you guys who are listening or watching can go Google that. But you don't know what you don't know. If you've never done any defensive firearms use, the first time you go, you will realize that you don't know anything. And then hopefully you'll go get more.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Tim. So if someone can go take one of your classes, where do they find you? What's your website? What's your social media? So they can find you.
So it's all pretty simple. It's LFX. That's Lima Foxtrot X-ray. So if you go to lfxtraining.com, and then LFX training everywhere else, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. So yeah, if you just go to the website, it has all the information there, all the classes, all my social media, all that kind of stuff. And I am very responsive. I tell everyone this in my classes. I said, listen, if you text me, if you call me, if you email me, I will respond almost immediately. And I answer any questions from gear to classes to other trainer recommendations, stuff like that. I will answer your emails and be very responsive.
Yeah, absolutely. Type A, type A souls here. But even if you don't get training from Tim, get training from someone.
Yes, absolutely.
Like you said, get recommendations from Tim for sure, and ask questions, get out there. And I think the one thing I want to leave people with that you said, pass knowledge down, don't retain it and keep it for yourself. Like you do. And like I do, when you take a class or when you learn something or you have that aha moment from someone, go teach and show somebody else, because you could be making a difference, could be saving a life. I try to bring everything back that I learned so that other people have it too.
That's right. Yeah. Pass along. If you learn something cool, tell it to somebody else.
Yeah. So Tim, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
Absolutely. So East Tennessee, y'all, come shoot with me and Tim sometime.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll have some fun. So tune in next week.
Thanks for listening to the Reticle Up podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Follow along on social media at Reticle Up or 3 Gun Kenzie.